If you are looking forward to the Israel Adesanya vs Jarred Cannonier fight, then be sure to show this by smashing the like button. It seems to be that once again, the world middleweight champion Israel Adesanya is once again going to be unquestionably the favorite going into yet another title defense, and this time around the odds of this opponent beating him are pretty much as low as they have ever been since he became a world champion. His opponent, the killer gorilla Jarred Cannonier, has always been a relatively respected top 15 fighter throughout his entire career, whether it was at the heavyweight division, light heavyweight division, or currently when he is peaking at the middleweight division. He has always been consistent in the way he fights, and at the age of 38, he has not really changed his game a whole lot. He has always been a relatively smart, patient fighter with great assessment of time and distance, with an occasional big right hand or left hand which he can drop the opponent with. Though not being a knockout artist, the threat of the knockout is always looming. However, when it comes to facing the last stylebender Israel Adesanya, you're going to be needing a whole lot more than simply a big punch. This time around, you're going to be having to elevate your entire game and fight in a manner which you have never fought before, because you are fighting a fighter which you have never fought anything close to in your entire career. And let's not forget, the man is 38 years old. When was his actual physical prime? When was he actually peaking? Now, when a fighter exactly peaks, it is always changing from fighter to fighter. In the case of Jarred Cannonier, as soon as he made that cut down to 185, he started to face people that he can physically take on a little bit better. For example, at the middleweight division, he can go ahead and, drop the opponent, hurt them. For example, even pin them on the fence, keep them on the mat, take their punches better, go a longer distance at the middleweight division. So when you're going to be taking Jarred Cannonier and putting him up against Jon Jones, Francis Ngannou, Cyril Gane, Stipe Miocic, you can immediately see that he is going to be a fish out of water. He does not belong at the heavyweight division. So as soon as he came down to the middleweight division and being a relatively consistent fighter in the way he fights and in his performances, he ended up being just a better version, a fitter version, and a more capable version of himself. But cutting down to the chase, in my opinion, it will not be enough. Israel Adesanya is going to be really exposing, in my opinion, the biggest weakness in his game, which is his hand speed, alongside with his boxing ability and his ability to corner and cut off the ring against an opponent. He has always been relatively slow when it came down to all of that. And facing Adesanya, you're going to be needing a whole lot of that exactly. You're going to be needing distance, you're going to be needing height, reach, weight, hand speed, power, a versatile arsenal. He's going to be needing everything. And when it comes to Cannonier, he's not particularly a wrestler. Doesn't mean he can't shoot for a takedown, but the reality is that Adesanya has faced way better grapplers, way better wrestlers, and he has beaten them all. So where does Jarred Cannonier fit into all of this when it comes down to ranking his abilities, whether it be in a stand-up or on the mat? Where does he really fit? He doesn't outshine anybody, and just as Adesanya said at the press conferences, Jarred Cannonier never really made anybody look easy. Against his fight with Derek Brunson, the opportunities to finish him were so prevalent all throughout the fight that it really took a whole lot of time before he even got there. And to my surprise, it even looked like at some point he could have blown his shot at beating Derek Brunson by way of KO, which would have been a shame because Derek Brunson is a very beatable opponent. Darren Till could have knocked him out. He just, got taken down and smashed to bits, which is pretty odd because when you think of Derek Brunson, you don't think about world elite level grappler, striker, Khabib Nurmagomedov type fighter. No, but the fact that he was able to beat those opponents back to back to back and be in those fights where he was getting clipped all over the octagon, it just made you think, when is this guy actually going to get clipped and knocked out? It was just very peculiar. But ultimately, Jarred Cannonier found his opening. He was able to put him down and then knock him out, and as a result, get his hands raised and earn his shot for the title. Now, Adesanya is going to be going into this fight knowing that Jarred Cannonier is going to be a very important fight for him, because in his last few title defenses, Adesanya hasn't been able to really cement down his dominance by knocking out or stopping the opponent. Obviously, outclassing them is one thing, but the fans have missed him going in there and finishing somebody. And that hasn't happened because the reality is Adesanya, just like Jon Jones, has a very limited amount of offensive skills that are very effective or as effective as his defense is. So when the opponent is not coming forward, when they are refusing to take a first step forward, when they are refusing to first initially engage, that is when Adesanya just simply says, okay, if you're not going to come at me, I will simply pick at your legs or jab you up at the distance that I'm at. And that is exactly what has been happening when it comes to these types of fighters who refuse to engage, and that is why we have sometimes a very boring fight. When we take a look at Robert Whittaker in the first fight, ultra aggressive, got knocked out. Paulo Costa, ultra aggressive, got knocked out. Derek Brunson, ultra aggressive, got knocked out as well. And then when you take a look at his fight against Robert Whittaker for the second time, all of a sudden, Robert Whittaker refuses to come forward, and boom, we have a 5-round chess match, very limited amount of significant strikes matchup. And all of those fighters excelled at something, right? Robert Whittaker, former dominant world champion. Yoel Romero, explosive, great grappler. Marvin Vettori, a very big, tough, strong fighter. Same goes with Paulo Costa. Derek Brunson, having great wrestling, was able to also take down Jarred Cannonier all the time. So then the question becomes, where exactly is it that Adesanya can cement down his dominance within this matchup? I believe that Jarred Cannonier, standing at 5'11" and with a very much so shorter reach and distance, Adesanya will be able to beat Cannonier at the game that he likes to play, which is the leg kicking game. He was able to TKO Anderson Silva by way of leg kick, and that for the most part has always been his best range fighter. When it comes down to his jab, when it comes down to his right straight, and when it comes down to his offensive game, overall it is very much so mediocre. And mediocrity is not exactly something that will beat greatness and excellence. So I believe that Adesanya will come forward, fight out of his orthodox stance, feint his jabs, throw a bunch of leg kicks, switch to his southpaw, throw a lot of body kicks and head kicks, and really wait for frustration to set in and wait for Jarred Cannonier to really open up and make a lot of mistakes. The hand speed difference will be very apparent. Adesanya is not that much faster than Cannonier. However, when it comes down to snapping his shots and choosing when to hit and actually connect, Adesanya is just simply much better at it. Will Adesanya be able to stop him? Unless Jarred Cannonier walks into a big shot and gets really hurt, I doubt it. However, I wouldn't count it out, because it seems like Jarred is a very strong fighter physically. He can take a good amount of punishment and really keep going, and his toughness was very, very apparent when he was fighting Robert Whittaker with a broken arm for the amount of rounds that he did. So ultimately, I believe that this matchup will be pretty much a 5-0 or a 4-1 decision victory at the very minimum, and I believe that the majority of the fight will be played out in the middle of the octagon, with Adesanya circling around Cannonier and Cannonier failing to cut off the ring and corner him, and then ultimately we will see yet another very dominant Israel Adesanya victory. I believe that Cannonier is bound to get frustrated at some point in the fight. Will he lose his cool and commit a lot of mistakes? In the end, only time will tell. For now, this was my take on the Israel Adesanya versus Jarred Cannonier title fight. Leave in the comment section down below who you think will win come fight night. And as always, I have been Keenan from Keenan KTV, signing off. Later.